friends, this is Aziz and it is Tech Time. Today I'm going to introduce you to how to open a file and read from it, and how to open an output file and output to it. So let's go ahead and start our tutorial by going to Start, Microsoft Visual Studio, and let's go ahead and make a new project, either from here or File, New, and Project. And let's go ahead and select empty project in Visual C++ and name it. I'm going to name mine file in and out. That would be input and output. And let's press OK. It's created for us right here. Let's go ahead and go to Resource, Files, Add New Item. And it's going to go C++ file, and let's call it main. This is in the main file, and let's go ahead and create our skeleton, which is by including IO stream. And let's go ahead and do using namespace std. We haven't decided if we're going to use strings yet, so let's not include it. Let's go ahead and do main, and let's put a system pause right in here. So first of all, we need to use a different library, because this library, as I introduced it in the start, this is for input output. This one lets us use the console input and output, which is cin and cout. Otherwise we cannot use them. And stream is just for output or input, and I stands for input, O stands for output, which is obvious right in here. So to do the file input and output, obviously it is going to be a stream, so we make sure that we have to have a stream library. And which one is it? It's a file stream, so f stream, just like you say it, f stream. So f stream, and it's right there. Press enter and end it, and this is the library that we're going to use. It stands for file stream, and we're going to go inside our main. So let's go ahead and create two integers, and I'll show you why. Integer num1 equals 0, num2 equals 0, and let's make them a float, just because we're going to use something like a calculator. So let's initialize them to 0.0f, and same thing in here. And as we did before in the tutorial that I've done previously, let's go ahead and create a char, which is an opper, and initialize it to a space. So right now, cin, like this, cin num1, and then num2, and then opper, you write it just like that. That is inputting from the console, which will wait for num1, num2, and opper. So who wrote this for us? The compiler already has this for us, the cin and cout. So for the file, we have to create it for ourselves. Now to start creating the input for the file stream, you do I stands for input, F is for file, and stream is for streaming, input file stream. That is exactly like you create float or char. You're telling it what is its kind. Then you have to give it a variable name, like in here. So you do fn, or some people do in file, or some people do file in. I like to use fn just because it's very similar to cin. Why would I create it any difference? It wouldn't make any sense. Fn cin, file input, console input. That makes a lot sense. Go ahead and put a semicolon. Now we can use this instead of cin, so let's go ahead and just change that C to F, and it doesn't give us any error. That means it will input from a file, but just not yet. For the output, it's the same way. OF stream, which stands for output file stream, and just like we do cout, we do fout. So right in here, this variable is the one we're going to use to output things, fout. Now we still don't have a file created for us. Where is it going to get its input? We didn't tell it where to get it from. So let's go ahead and tell it where to get its input from, which is by doing fn, which is the variable name, and putting a dot. Dot opens whatever functions that are available to us in the f stream. So let's go ahead and do open, which is to open a file, and put parentheses because open is a function, so it has parentheses. So let's say input.txt. This is the file it will look inside. So let's go ahead and create fout.open, which is for the output file. It will open this file, which let's call it output.txt. Now before going any further than this, how does it know where are these files? Where are they? We haven't made them yet, so it will not open anything. Now one thing to note is in the input file, it will not create it for us. We have to create it ourselves, and then it will pick it up from there. For the output file, it's a different case because it will create it for us and then put the output inside. But the input, it can't create the input for us because it might be something else that we want to choose, so it will not create it for us. So to create files, which is .txt or whatever file you'd like, HTML or whatever, you can go to resource files. You can create it in the source files, but I choose resource files because really it is a resource, and the source files only carry main and .cpp files and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and create it in the resource files, just because we need a better management of our files and everything. So let's go ahead and right click on it, add new item. Now in here you can go all the way to the bottom and find .txt file, or you can go to utility and then text file right in here, and then let's choose a name for it, which has to be exactly the name we tell it right in here, letter for letter. Input, and it will input the .txt for us, or we can do .txt right in here, add. So there is the input file, and there it is right in here. Now let's add the output file also, or I will show you that it will create the output file for us. So let's not go ahead and create it. Let's go ahead and drag this, the input.txt, drag it down, and do you see the circle right in here? This circle, if we stand over the top one, it will create a blue line right in here. So I'm going to put it on the right of it and let go. Now it's put it on the right of the page. Now we can see the code and the input. So let's go ahead and do for the input 5 and then 5 and then a plus. The code right in here will tell us how are we going to input our information here, which what I did right in here is input a number, then input a number, then input an operator, because these, do you see these bigger than, higher than? The higher than eats a space, so it doesn't see a space, it doesn't see an end line. Whenever it sees an end line, it just skips it. Whenever it sees a space, it skips it. So when we do num1, it will only see 5. It will not see 5 and then space and a 5. It will see a 5 and stops there. Then this will skip the space, and then the num2 will take the other number, and so on until we get all of them. So now we have the input, and now we have the code right in here. So let's go ahead and put 2 enters right here. Let's comment on this and make sure that we tell the person behind us who uses this code that these are the variables right in here, and this is the processing right in here, and let's do the output right in here. Alright, so right in here is the variables. We have created the variables and we open the file. Now what if the file name is wrong? It will not execute the code, it will not do any output, it will not do the code, it won't go to processing, because it will just keep reading things that aren't there. But how do we make sure that we open the right file? How do we make the code tell us that this is not the right file name? Well, there's a way. So you can do if !fn. So if the file is not open, go ahead and use brackets, and then inside it you can display to yourself on the console and not on the file because you're going to read on the console. So if it tells you in the console that it didn't open it, you know that it's not going to output anything in the output file. So it's going to do cout, let's say file is not opening right, and let's put an end line right in here. And to exit out of this code, because if you do this if, it will finish and then do the processing anyway, but you don't want it to do that. You want it to read and tell you that it didn't open right, and then it will tell you, okay, that's it, we're done right here, go ahead and fix that and then come back later and run it again. So to do that, let's go ahead and do a system pause to stop the code after it does this, and then lets us know and read it in our own time, not 1 second. And right in here, this is what will exit out of the whole code. Exit parenthesis 0 parenthesis semicolon. This function will exit out of the whole code, and it will not let us run through the whole code, all of it. It just runs to this line and then stops. So now we have declared that. Now it will check if the file is inputting right or not. So let's go ahead and delete this T right here and see if it's working. So deleted the T, so the name in here is not the same name in here, so the file doesn't really exist. Let's go ahead and debug, start without debugging. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Now see right in here, it says file is not opening right, and then press any key to continue, which is the system pause, and then press enter. It did not do anything else, and we know that because there's a system pause right in here, and it would have told us, okay, press any key to continue, but it didn't do that. So let's go ahead and put back the T right in here, so it runs the code right. Now we go to processing. Now in here, the fn is for inputting from the file. So the fn, whatever the file that you tell it in here, it will go inside this file and then input a number, which is this number, then this number, then this character, which is the upper. And let's go ahead and do the processing under it, which is a simple switch statement for a calculator. So in case for an upper, we're going to check the upper, and in case it is a plus, then do total equal num1 plus num2, and let's go ahead and create total right in here, comma total equal 0.0f. So after we created that, we have to use a break. Always remember the break is very important. So let's go ahead and create the rest of the cases. Let's go ahead and just copy this and paste it 4 times right in here, and change this to a minus, same thing in here, and change this to a multiplication, same thing in here. And you can see that it's giving us a red line because case label value has already appeared in the switch, which is right in the start. You can have 2 of the same thing. And let's go ahead and put a division, but under it let's do a default, which is if it's none of those, then f out, which is displaying to the file, which it will look inside this and then display whatever we tell it right here. Use it just like you use cout. F out, the operator used is wrong, and put an end line, and that is it. And in here, let's make sure that it will reinitialize total, because it will remember the last total, the previous total to this one, and I'll show you what I'm talking about because it's easier to show you. So just go ahead and press Control A to select the whole code and format it by going to Edit, go into Advanced, and then go to Format Selection. Now it is formatted right, and you don't have to use a break for the default. So let's go ahead and run this code and see what happens. But before we run it, we have to do an output of total, which is f out total. Total is total, and then put an end line right in here. And let's go ahead and go to debug, start without debugging, and let's see what happened. Now it just displayed press any key to continue because it ran to this code. We didn't tell it to do any other cout. So let's go ahead and press enter. And now it created the output file for us, but we don't see it here. We don't see the output because we have to add the output file right in here. So go ahead to go in resource files, right click, add, but not new item. This time we're going to choose existing item because it already created for us. So go ahead and press that, and you can see it right here, output.txt. So let's go ahead and add it, and right in here it is the output. So double click that, and let's drag it again, and then choose the right one right in here and let it go. Let's minimize it, minimizing it by going on this bar right in the middle and clicking and dragging. So you can see that total is 10, which is 5 plus 5 is equal to 10. Now what if we want to do more than one number? So let's say in this case is 9 and a 3.5 and a minus, and then we want to do a 8 and a 6 and a multiplication, and 50 and a 23, and let's do division right in here. And let's just do an error one. The operator used is wrong. So let's go ahead and do 9. Let's do 7. And let's do just anything. Choose anything that you'd like that isn't one of these operators. So let's choose an and sign, for example. What will happen is it will read these codes, do them just like it did this one, and then at the last one it will give us an error because of this. Now to use that, this line will only do one, as I will show you right now. Go to debug, start without debugging, and press this, press any key. Now this will show up because we have the output file right here, as you can see in here. The file has been modified because we outputted something to it, so press yes to all. And it only did one line, it didn't read the rest of the lines. That is because we are only doing it once. Now we can copy this code 5 times, but that isn't the right way of doing it, because we have introduced loops in the previous tutorial, which you can see on our website nddevelopment.co. and so let's go ahead and create a loop right in here. Now first, before we think about creating a loop, which loop do we want to use? We can use a for loop because we know how many times we're going to go here, which is 5 times. But what if we have 6 lines? Then what do we do? Do we have to modify it every time we run the code? So that's not a really good choice. So let's X out for loops. So what about do while loops? Do while loops does the code once at first and then checks if we go again or not. But what if we don't have any lines? We don't want to go ahead just do it once. So that's not a good loop to use. While loop is the most used loop for files. So let's go ahead and create a while. Now the condition is while it isn't the end of the file. The end of the file is a character right in here, right behind the and sign. There are characters right behind every one of those, like an end line, end line, end line, end line. There is an end of file right in here, but we don't see them. So to check for that, we do while not, the exclamation mark is a not, while not filen, which is fn dot eof, which is a function written for us, and open and close parenthesis, close again. Let's put the bracket right around the code like so, and let's format it by pressing Ctrl A, edit, and advanced format selection. So let's go ahead and see the code right now. So while it isn't the end of the file, go ahead and run the rest of the code. Now here's the problem with this. When you input something right in here like so, what we're doing is we're taking one and then taking another number and then taking an operator. Now this is fine. It will loop again and take those, and then loop again, take those, then those, then those. But it will not take the character behind the and sign. The last input will be upper, which will take the and sign by itself, but it won't see what's behind it. So when it checks, it will say Well, it isn't the end of the file, so go ahead and run the code, which will result in the error of running the last code twice. So let me go ahead and show you. Debug, start without debugging, and let's see what happens. Let's press any key and press yes to all, and see right in here the total is 10, which is the addition of 5 and 5, and then 9 minus 3.5, which is a 5.5, 8 times 6, and 50 divided by 23, which is the output right here. But in here the operator is wrong, which is because of the and sign. Total is 0, but it did it twice. That is why, because it inputted the last line, because it input all 3 at once right in here. It inputs 3 at once, so inputs 3, 3, 3, and 3, but it didn't check behind it. If we had put a 4th input right in here, it would have seen the end of the file, and then it would have been fine. Now, to fix this particular error, we have to do an input before we run into the code, and then 1 at the end, which is to cut it. And to cut is right click, cut, and then put it behind the last code right in here. So paste it right here, and let's take off the spaces right there. The reason for this is because it will input right in here, so it will do this input. Then when it finishes, it does this input and it checks. Then it finishes, it takes another input and checks. It takes another input, then checks again, takes another input, then checks again, and then it won't run to a problem right in here. So let's go ahead and run it. Debug, start without debugging. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Press any key to continue, yes to all, and as we can see in here, it took off the last one, and it only did it once because it took the input and then it checked the proper way, and that is fine. You can also do it a different way, a couple of different ways, but as usual with any kind of computer thing, you can do it a million ways, so you can figure some of those ways out depending on your code, depending on what suits you best. Now, remember I said something about total equals 0.0f. Now I'm going to go ahead and comment this line like that, and let's go ahead and run this code. Start without debugging, press that, and press any key to continue, yes to all, and as you can see, the line right here changed to whatever this was. The reason for that is I'm going to press on here, and I will show you what is happening inside the code. So start debugging, and let's go ahead, press yes to all, and then input. Now num1 is 5, num2 is 5, upper is a plus because it inputted the first line, and it will go to the first, which is 34, which is the code inside is at 35, so it will go here, and then it will break, and it will do the output, and then input another one, which is 5 and 5 right now, but now it is a 9 and a 3.5 and an operator, which is a minus. It will go again and does this code, and it will keep going on that. Now it's a multiplication. Now you can follow this line right here. Now it's a division. So let's see what happens here. Total is 4.8 still from the last total, and now it will change because 50 divided by 23 is equal to 2.17, and so on. So let's go ahead and press F10. Now it did change to 2.17 right in here. Now let's go ahead and press F10. Now it outputted it, and now it took another input, which is 9 and a 7 and an and sign. Now let's go ahead and check it. Now it does the checking right in here. Is there an end file? No. So operator, it will go to default, and it will display that to us. And right in here, what it will do, it will output the total, but total have not changed yet. We haven't done total equals something in here. The last time it saw total equals something was in here, and it kept that in the memory, which is 2.17. So that is why we reinitialize it right in here to 0. So we tell the user, okay, you haven't done anything so far, we have to retell it that it's a 0. So it will output that, and this is why it will check for an end of file, because even though it took this last input, there is no more input. But what it will do is it will check with these file in, one of them is going to be an end of file, and in here it will check for it and we'll see, okay, this is the end of file. So now you see that none of them change when we skip this line, when we went over this line. None of them change. That means we hit the end of the file, and it will get out of the code, goes to system pause, and then shows us this right in here, and we press any key and it is done. Let's go ahead and press on stop debugging, yes to all, and you can see your output right in here. So let's go ahead and uncomment this, and let's take out the dot, debug, start without debugging, you press yes to all, and now we have the right thing. So this is your simple calculator with the inputs. The inputs are exactly like you do cin, but you create it as fin. Same thing with cout is the same as fout, and you have to always remember to do the variables right in here to whatever you would like. And to open the files, the file in does not create it for you. You have to create the file right in the resources, and the output file it creates it for you. This code will check if the input file is right, and you input from here, and this input is so we don't run into running the last code twice, which you do input here and then an input at the end of the while loop, and this one will check if it is not the end of the file. I hope you like this tutorial. If you have any questions or if I'm talking too fast, please let me know and ask your questions on indiedevelopment.co. In the forums you will see C++. Just go ahead and create a new post, and don't forget to subscribe on your questions so you get your response as fast as possible. And please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.